On November 3rd, 1957, the second spacecraft to ever be launched into Earth orbit lifted off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. This was the Sputnik 2, and it carried a crew member of one, a 3-year-old dog named Laika. Nearly everyone who's ever had an interest in space has heard this story, of course. We know how it ends, and it doesn't end happily. Laika reached orbit alive, but soon died of hypothermia. The Sputnik 2, now a tomb, remained in orbit for months. On October 18th, 1963, the Veronik launched for a suborbital mission. It also carried a crew member of one, Felicette, one of 14 cats trained by Surman to be astronauts. She survived the mission, but was later euthanized so her brain could be studied. At some point in our lives, we do things for the last time. We walk through doors we never pass through again, wave goodbye to people we never come back to. Bitter as endings are, we're lucky if we're aware we're at the end of something. Most people never do. Most people embark on one-way journeys trusting the road will wind back home. Hello everybody, my name is Levi and welcome to an essay on Markiplier's Iron Lung. Before I waste precious hours of your time, I would like to begin with disclaimers. 1. This is not a technical review of the Iron Lung movie. I'm not a film critic, student, writer, or director. I do not have the knowledge to be able to properly quantify what the film technically does right or wrong. I had a couple of film classes in my college program, but I was a multimedia art student, so my body of knowledge is on a completely different blood ocean. 2. Not to say that I'm completely talking out of my ass. While this is not a technical review of Iron Lung from the perspective of someone with film knowledge, it is an analysis from the perspective of a prose writer. And I do have a few credentials for that. I published a few things, got nominated for some awards, even won a thing just over a year ago. So I do have some know-how in storytelling. 3. English is not my first language. Now, I can write and understand it fine. I can understand it fantastic. Abhorrent inbred lingual amalgamation that it is, but I do have an extremely confusing accent because, as I was growing up, all the programs my parents used to put on to entertain me all had people that sounded like this. So, my child self learned to emulate sounds accordingly. Now, note, I've never been outside my country, so even despite this accentual atrocity, there are still sounds in it that I have trouble with. Compound that with the fact that I'm currently trying to affect some vaguely American accent because I'm extremely insecure about my odd linguistic development, and you'll have me constantly pronouncing things weird. Just a heads up for that. I'll put captions on this thing, but if you're listening to this like a podcast, I apologize sincerely. 4. I know that this is mostly a music channel, and if I'm not shitposting, I'm making little fan songs and Vocaloid songs, so why am I making a video essay on Iron Lung? Well, because I made a binding vow that if it got to the Philippines, I would make a 2-hour video on it. And then not even 24 hours later, the Philippines release was confirmed. So, kung nasa Pilipinas ka, tapos nakita mo yung film, you're welcome. Now I gotta hold up my end of the bargain. 5. This video contains spoilers. Please proceed at your own risk. The film opens with exposition by way of narration from the leader of Eden. He tells of the Quiet Rapture, a cosmic catastrophe where the stars and planets suddenly disappeared, leaving only a few space stations. This loss of resources caused the crisis of living and put humanity on the brink of extinction. Survivors schismed into 2 major factions: Eden, a religious group who believe humanity has no future and the solution to the dilemma of the Quiet Rapture is total human extinction, and the Consolidation of Iron, a sort of government scraped together in an effort to rebuild and find a way to survive the post-QR universe. Eden's leader then preaches to what I assume is the competent members of his followers. He says that the Consolidation has found something of interest in their search for possible resources: a moon called AT5 that has an ocean of blood. After this, we're introduced to one of the members of Eden, a character who is only referred to, at this point, as the Convict. He, along with a group of other Eden members, were captured by the Consolidation after they attacked Filament Station. Their punishments vary depending on who is tasked to carry out their sentence, but this convict was given to a research team, so is made to pilot a submarine called the SM-13 down to the bottom of 85's aforementioned blood ocean. There's this tactic used by both media and hostage negotiators when you talk to criminals about their victims. In most cases, when someone's mind is stretched to the point of violent crime, people stop being people to them. Depending on the hows and whys of the situation, the degree of separation from personhood can range from conceptual to complete disconnection. So, to humanize the victim, to bridge this gap between idea and person, negotiators often give the criminals their victims' names. The convict in this sense starts as a non-person to both the Consolidation and to the audience. In the case of the COI, understandably so. He is, after all, one of the men who blew up a very important station that was trying to make sure what little was left of humanity lived on. For the violence he enacted upon them, they enact the same by removing his selfhood from him. His positioning in relation to the audience is interesting. By not naming the convict during our first impression of him, there's effectively this wall propped up between us and him. By stripping him of something so basic, the convict is now not your equal. Another facet to consider is also how, despite the convict being positioned as less than to the audience, we are essentially locked in the iron lung with him via the movie's runtime. The sub has oxygen good for 2 hours. The movie's runtime is 2 hours. When you step into the cinema, the runtime locks you down with the convict in the sub. But you're each going through very different experiences. Neither of you know or can reach each other. As the convict submarine descends into the ocean floor, the captain of the research team, the one in charge of the convict's punishment, tells him that he's the first one down there. This, as we're to learn, along with the claim that the descent is the test for the SM-13, is a lie. There have been multiple dives with other Eden convicts. The SM-13's first oxygen light even goes down early, hinting at the previous mission where the oxygen was barely used. The captain herself has done a dive, and that's presumably where she got the injury on her left eye. The deeper the SM-13 descends into the blood ocean, the harder it is for the tow ship's radio to reach it, so once the ship loses signal, we only have the convict and his terrified mutterings for commentary. Which isn't really that different from watching a YouTuber sit in the dark room and yell things. It's in this sequence where the film sits most faithful to the video game, as the convict lunges his way around the controls and presses the radiation camera 1 more billion times. I'll say that in his defense, he didn't know at the moment, which he did genuinely not know at the moment, but there are multiple shots of him reading the manual, specifically the section where it warns him that the camera is radioactive. I know some people read this as him either not paying attention or playing ignorant, but I'd like to offer an alternative reading. In a later scene, the convict gets noticeably defensive of his literacy. Considering the state of the world, it's possible he was raised to kill first and read second. A situation where we taught them how to shoot, how to pour concrete, how to kill, and how to survive, and if they made it that far, if they mastered those skills and had time, then we taught them how to read and write, to reason and understand the world. Perhaps the convict can't read that fast, so when he quickly flipped the page, he didn't really understand that the X-ray camera was radioactive. Whatever the reason for his ignorance of the radioactive camera, while he's using it, he captures the image of a strange skeleton and attracts another creature with a bright flash. That creature knocks his sub around and pitches it back to radio distance, where he's able to communicate with the tow ship and report the skeleton is found. They're intrigued by the discovery and pull him up to the surface. If this was a more forgiving story, this would have been the end of the convict's sentence. As it is, this is just a setup, and will continue into the plot's slow slide into madness. The research captain tasks the convict with taking a sample from the skeleton, citing that studying it could be useful, and if he doesn't go back down now, the ocean current could sweep it away. He's understandably apprehensive, given that he's just encountered something that threw his ship up several meters, but the captain ignores him. If you haven't seen the film yet, or don't know anything about the premise of Iron Lung, you need to know that the convict has been welded shut into the SM-13. For the entirety of this conversation, the convict is stuck inside the submarine, and he can't really do anything other than bang around in there when the captain walks away. So, to get their attention, He activates the camera, and in doing so, unknowingly blasts the entire cruise ship with radiation. Because again, he wasn't aware that the camera was radioactive, and he only learns when the captain yells at him for hitting them with a Cancerinator 3000. The captain brings the ship's welder, who was closest to the camera when it went off, to the infirmary, and another crew member takes over communicating with a convict when he's sent back into the ocean to collect the bone sample. From their conversation, we learn the COI's slogan, "This is bigger than us," the fact that Eden had the last tree, how the convicts surrendered during the attack on Filament Station, and how Eden gave the convict a tattoo and the COI burned it off, and it's carved in the same shape anyway, which there's a metaphor there about both sides ultimately being the same thing, just dressed up in different framing. What's that line from the Who Killed series? Same snake, different skin. The crewmate also lies to him about the hull being thick enough to prevent the convict from being irradiated, and I do say lied because, come on, how can you work in a research team and not read the manual of the sub? The convict, meanwhile, starts hallucinating. He sees a shadow at the back of the sub and, when he investigates, finds a note that tells him to cross the wires of the computer. He does, and finds a pendant with a leaf from the last tree of Eden, and a recorded voice message from one of the Eden combatants who was also given to the research team for punishment. The message is a note that we find in the Iron Lung game, with the iconic, "They will get their execution. I will get my freedom." When I first heard Mark was doing an Iron Lung adaptation, I thought we would be seeing this guy on screen. Instead, we got the convict who went after him and who chooses, instead, to fight and live. A goal that gets a little difficult to pull off because after the convict gets the skeleton bone sample, the unseen creature that hit his sub before returns and snatches his ship off the tow ship's crane. This causes him to get slammed into one of the submarine's walls and he passes the fuck out. With that, we enter the movie's second, more surreal section. When the convict wakes up, he's lost contact with the tow ship and left to fend for his own. He scrounges around the sub and finds some woefully inadequate supplies stashed away. Enough for the COI to say they didn't neglect to give him essentials, but not enough to survive. There's a life vest that has an emergency light, a device that's supposed to bring him to safety should things go sideways, but considering the COI never meant for him to return back up, its presence is almost a mockery. Still, it's a facsimile of safety, some shred of hope, so he puts it aside. He also finds some gauze, which he uses to treat his injuries, a bottle of water, which he chugs down, and a smaller bottle of rubbing alcohol, which he also chugs down. I live in the tropics, and I've been in some stupid heat before, and I get it so much. He uses the emergency light on the life vest to investigate the crawl space underneath the ship and fix the ship's power. He also finds the ship's black box, which will be important in the film's third act. While he's down there, the computer starts alerting him of a hull breach. He crawls back up to check the singular glass window he has on his sub, the glass of which was salvaged from Filament Station, evidence of his cruelty, yet now used to protect him from, getting Titan subbed underneath the blood ocean, but I digress. He watches in horror as it slowly cracks, the spider webbing of which somewhat resembles the leaf fragment inside the Eden pendant he now has. Then, a spurt of blood cuts across his face, noticeably staining his left eye. Same injury that Ava has. I've neglected to mention that this whole time the ship has been leaking blood from the ocean. During the check-in with the tow ship, Captain Ava asks the convict if the ship has been leaking, and he says there's been some drops of blood here and there, but she dismisses this as condensation. It's not condensation, it's blood, and we know this because all the spots that the convict has gotten hit with by that condensation later burns through his skin, just like the blood that's splashed on his face. Ava has sent multiple convicts down into the ocean. She knows it's not blood too. She must. But whether or not it is doesn't matter because the sub will survive a few drops here and there. Convicts won't, but they're expendable bodies, expendable workers. The sub is a resource that will be difficult to replace. The convict's terror at getting a face full of freaky ocean blood is interrupted by a fire breaking out at the back of the sub. He puts the fire out quickly, but the hull breach alert is still going. He loses his patience at this and punches the speaker right out of its socket, breaking it and shutting it up. He also injures his hand in the process. Once he's calmed down a bit, he tends to his hand, regroups, and tries to chart his way out of the ocean. This is when we finally get his name. As while he's working, he talks to himself and says, "If you see anyone looking for Simon, tell them I'm here." His mind drifts, and we get small flashes of his life, including a scene from Filament Station, where one of his brothers, after he's mentally backed out of the plan, tells him to stop standing there and something explodes in the distance. Soon after this, Simon finds the SM-8, a research vessel belonging to the COI, and one that was lost quite a while ago. His ship's computer connects to it, and though Simon can't fully access its info, he does see that its black box is intact. He just needs the right privileges to get in. As he doesn't at the moment, he decides that's not his problem and goes back to trying to get to the surface. He seems to be making progress as the speaker starts picking something up. Not Captain Ava, but the voice of who he soon realizes is a researcher from the destroyed SM-8. Though I've been using her name before this point, this scene is actually the first time we get Captain Ava's name, when the SM-8 researcher calls for her help. Simon concludes that the research team is still alive, but unfortunately, also stuck down here with him. They can't help him. His oxygen dwindles to just one light left. 30 minutes, and he loses hope and starts to have a breakdown. The researcher tries to comfort him and notably says, "Some of the others went that way. Not the worst fate down here." Now, if you've seen the movie, you know damn well she's not talking about her fellow researchers, because there are no fellow researchers anymore. She's talking about the other convicts who were sent down here, who she's watched slowly run out of oxygen. She mentions a brilliant light which the SM-8 found at the bottom of the ocean. This, she says, was the cause of the quiet rapture, or at least a part of it. But she also admits that her memory is a bit muddy and her tone quickly changes from reverent to afraid as she tells Simon that he should stay away from the light and forget about it. Simon, unfortunately, wants answers. Everyone's been leaving him in the dark. The COI, Ava, the other tow ship crewmates, even Eden, to some extent, and he's sick of it. The researcher asks him if he would give anything to survive, and when he says yes, she gives him a set of coordinates so he can see the light and be free. How many times has humanity turned to the light for answers, for reprieve, for salvation, for absolution? The light takes on many forms. God, magic, the stars, technology. When we feel alone, when we feel lost, ripped from our tow ships, stuck somewhere unfamiliar, we turn to the light. As Simon makes his way to the coordinates, the researcher swings back to being reverent, almost fanatic of this light. Simon soon realizes that this might be a bad idea, just as the researcher, exultant, says, "We will see, Simon. We will see the answer together." Simon, of course, has never said his name to the researcher. In fact, the only mention of his name was that one instance he was talking to himself. But she says he did tell her. And he did, when he said that if someone was looking for Simon, tell him he's still down here. She was listening. She was watching. She has been watching this whole time. She's been watching everyone who's come down to the ocean this whole time. A beam of light then cuts through the submarine, and we get this fantastic shot of the life vest burning up first, the facsimile of safety, the mockery of hope, but hope nonetheless. It's destroyed first. Then Simon wakes up in this massive pool of blood and sees a singular eye looking down on him. Simon says, "I see you," and God agrees. Simon wakes back up to an intact sub and to Captain Ava talking to him from the speaker. He thinks he's losing his mind, and he's hallucinating the SM-8 researcher again. When he checks the speaker, which, I reiterate, he punched out, it's intact and whole. In fact, Ava tells him it's already been a few days since he was pulled down from the tow ship and went missing. His brief encounter with divinity turned out to be longer than expected. A day to God is 1,000 years for mankind. Simon's a bit confused as to what's going on, but he realizes that this is, in fact, a real interaction, and he has a chance to get himself out of the SM-13. He tells Ava he found the SM-8 and successfully bargains one last mission for his freedom. One detail I've neglected to mention is that throughout this film, when Simon is assigned a task, he always goes, "I do this, and then I'm free, right?" But Ava always rewords their agreement to something else, like, if he does this task, then the tow ship will pull him up, or he's done for the time being. This time, however, when Simon says, once he gets the data from the SM-8, then he's free, she agrees, verbatim, that he will be free. Ava also finally gives him her name, confirming to the audience that she is the same Ava the researcher was calling out to. She gives him the password to the SMA's black box, which, notably, changes in each instance she says it, and he descends to the SMA's location to retrieve the data. Ava then has herself welded into her own sub, so she can meet Simon at an extraction point and get him out. Unfortunately, at this point, Simon is not having a good time. The radiation from the repeated use of the camera has done its damage. All the blood that's rained on him from the sub leaking and the crack on the hull has burned through his clothes and infected him. The encounter with God has split his mind open. You don't venture into the abyss without the abyss venturing into you, after all. He's hallucinating while he's navigating, and we get the most detailed flashback and auditory hallucination sequence in the film. From what I managed to pick out on my viewing, we learned that 1. The filament station attack had 62 victims, not counting Eden casualties. 2. Simon already had a body count before filament station, and seems to be Eden's most effective combatant, as one of the surviving Eden prisoners says. Not one of us has more blood in their hands than you. We see a flashback of younger Simon with literally bloody hands standing over a pile of corpses. I assume they were fellow Eden members and this was some sort of training exercise where everyone had to fight to the last man standing. Standard assassin training backstory stuff. Simon was the most exceptional of his class. This skill carried to adulthood and earned him the nickname Simon the Butcher. 3. I'm going off of dialogue sequence and context clues here, but the conversation where Simon's morbid accolades are revealed seems to be happening while he and the other Eden captives are in prison, and not all of them are captured from the filament station attack. The one Simon is talking to, in particular, says that he wasn't even there, so he presumably was captured on a different mission. 4. Simon's mother brought him to Eden, promising that he'd love it there. 5. Some of Eden's members were planning to start a garden, but the council would confiscate their seats. I assume that the council is part of the COI, as the error script on the SMA's black box says, leave the area immediately or surrender yourself to council authority. 6. At some point, the last tree died. If I heard the voices right, Simon discusses this with his mother. At the present, one of Simon's hallucinations warns him that something is following him. He snaps back to lucidity and focuses on getting to the SMA. He successfully downloads its files and finds a recording from one of the ship's researchers, the same one who led him to see the light. It turns out the SMA was stuck in the ocean long enough that the researchers started drinking the blood just to survive. This blood can be used to synthesize food, but that's not advisable as A. the blood is human blood, and B. this blood later causes her, and presumably the rest of her team, to mutate into the creature that has been following Simon's ship, who has been following this whole time, and the very same creature that was talking to him when the speaker was broken. This creature has been lovingly named Ellie by its designer, Molly Brown, so we will refer to her as such from this point forward. Simon tries to get to the extraction point as fast as he can, but he notices that, well, his skin is melting. There are no mirrors on the SM-13, so he can't see the full scope of the damage, but the audience can. He's degrading. He's changing. The radiation is catching up to him. As he's freaking out, Ellie speaks to him again, angry that Ava has come down to the ocean. She tries to convince him to destroy the data before it can reach the surface. At the same moment, Ava contacts his ship and tells him to prioritize the black box's safety even at the cost of his own life. Simon, once again, has his hopes of freedom dashed. He is, after all, another expendable body. But Ava is too. She knows this and has accepted this, because she meant all those moments where she recited the COI slogan, "This is bigger than us." She does believe, wholeheartedly, that the cause is bigger than the guilt of sending convicts to the ocean to die, bigger than risking a group of scientists to the same danger, bigger than putting her life on the line. Her conviction is then swiftly tested. Ellie attacks her sub, and she dies. With Ava gone, Ellie turns her attention to Simon and bemoans the fact that it, presumably God, chose him, which is how he survived the light and came back. She, along with the blood ocean, which, yes, has some level of sentience and can mutate into these tentacle things, attack his sub while a cancer-ridden Simon goes down to save the black box. Unfortunately, he gets his arm caught in one of the blood tentacles, and when he tries to pull it back, he ends up dismembering himself. With the gravity of the injury, Simon realizes he's going to bleed out and die, so he wraps the black box with a life vest, now no longer a mockery, but a real symbol of hope, to keep it safe. He spends his last moments using the SM-13 as a bomb, driving it straight into Ellie's mouth and blowing them both up. A killer from childhood, a killer to the end. Later, we see the black box float to the surface, safe in a life vest. A searchlight finds it. There's this through line of contradiction in the film, and nearly all of the important characters share it. Ava doesn't bother to learn the names of the convicts she sends down to dehumanize them in her head, but at the same time, she acknowledges that there aren't enough left of the human race to be throwing lives away so callously. Ellie reveres the light, but at the same time fears it enough to kill Ava and Simon just to keep them away from it. God caused a quiet rupture and causes an apocalypse, but puts Simon back together when he encounters the light. Then, there's the COI in Eden. Literally, humanity is split into two. One side believing salvation is in struggle, the other believing salvation is in surrender. As the POV character in the one we spend our 2 hours of the movie with, Simon brings most of these contradictions on screen. From what little we get of his backstory, we know that he was raised in a terrorist death cult and he was their most successful combatant. His mother, if Ellie's ravings are to be believed, was the one who taught him this violence. At the same time, he still had enough empathy in him to second guess the bombing of Filament Station. Over the course of the film, he apologizes constantly. To the tow ship crew, to Ava, even to his ship's controls when he hits it a little too hard. He's smart and quick to pick up skills, judging by how he immediately gets the hang of piloting the SM-13 despite never having piloted it before. I assume this affinity is what made him such a successful killer. At the same time, his immediate defensiveness of his intelligence when Captain Ava only asks him about the skeleton indicates that he's insecure about his mental capabilities. His mother taught him how to kill, and he seems to have a conscience when it comes to hurting others. Despite this, he still loves and thinks about her. He's hopeful enough to want to try to live. He prefers Eden's nihilistic worldview over the COI's trite slogans. I like characters like these. Characters that are made of contradictions but are consistent in how they contradict themselves. Simon is a narrative treat for someone like me. There's enough in the film for me to get a good grasp on who and how he is, but at the same time, there's just enough holes that I want to grab him and pry his skull open so I can get details. There are a lot of leaps that a human mind has to make in order to cross the threshold into murder, and a death cult carves the paths for those leaps in a very particular way. It's the community one grows up in, the basis of the social norms that a child learns to carry. Having a parent encourage this kind of violence also further cements those norms into one's psyche. But Simon retains enough softness to land him in trouble, and I need to know how that softness survived his upbringing. Did it not, and he was just confronted with how the blood on his hands was wrong? What happened that the butcher suddenly lost his nerve? Like one of his brothers said, when did Simon grow a conscience? Or was it always there, just carefully tucked away under all the ways to hurt someone? This quietly germinating seed that inconveniently grew around everything he was taught until its roots choked those lessons out. How does he reconcile this conscience of his with what his beloved mother taught him? How does it taint the love he has for her? Does it? Or is she an exception? A bloody Madonna that he excuses because she is his mother. And no matter what she's done and how many sharp things she's pressed into his hands, he loves her, still. I need details. I need a character study. I need to put him in a blender, lock on the cover, and tape down the highest setting until his thought processes spill out and separate through centrifugal force. I need to eat his brain. Right after Simon, our second most important character in the film is Captain Ava. Like Simon, she too is a character of contradictions. She says, in her own words, that there aren't enough people left to be throwing lives away. But that's exactly what she's doing when she sends convicts down into the blood ocean. And if Simon saying, "How much more are you going to use me?" is to be read into, it's implied that prior to his dive into the AT-5, she was already putting him through tasks, promising him freedom, and then not following through with her end of the deal. She's burned through multiple convicts and had them do dangerous errands until their death. She's burned through multiple bodies, in fact, as the research dives include scientists, innocent people. She's sat with the weight of those deaths for years, and then she sends another possible casualty down into the ocean. She's pragmatic in her use of these bodies that are given to her care, and pragmatic enough to accept her fate once her sub gets caught between Ellie's teeth. At the same time, she's blindly hopeful, constantly reciting, "This is bigger than us," despite the dismal state of the universe where there doesn't seem to be anything her efforts are bigger than. She condemns Simon for his crimes and his affiliation with Eden. She dehumanizes him and is willing to let him die to secure the black box. But at the same time, she understands and acknowledges that what she's put him through is unfair. She's all edges, someone burdened by responsibility, but she's not so heartless that she wouldn't feel bad for a murderer she sent on a futile mission. I wish we got a little more time with her because she's the closest we have to a mirror of Simon. Our third most consequential character, of course, is the monster of the film. The eel, aka Ellie, fantastically designed by Molly Brown and conceptually inspired by Shin Kojira and Homerton from Annihilation. Inferring from her appearance, she seems to be a mutated fusion of all the SM8's researchers. Throughout the film's runtime, her most prominent personality and voice is the researcher who drank the 85 blood. She's fascinating, and I need a rewatch to make up my mind on what the outline of her personality is. She reveres the light and leads Simon toward it so they can see the answer together and be free. But she also fears it, and fears people finding it because she thinks it's too dangerous. She doesn't know what happened to Filament Station. She knows Simon's mother taught him how to kill. She's seen God and been irrevocably changed by it. She longs to see it again just because she finds it beautiful. This through line of contradiction, I think, is the second strongest in her, but not because she's a multifaceted being. No, I think it's because she's quite literally multiple people. She's only one physical ill, but she says, we're still here, or they were still looking for us. She's basically just Markiplier, but instead of 2 people plus 1 unknown entity plus 1 dead body, it's at least 5 researchers plus the fuckery of the blood ocean plus whatever happens when someone meets God. I think her contradicting state is because her psyche is constantly a clash of different thoughts from different sources. In fact, the only time we ever see her lock in is when Ava dives into the ocean. Then suddenly there's no wavering between 2 opinions. The light must be forgotten. Doom duty for those with eyes to see. And baby, call me psychic cause I've got the vision. Also, it's possible Ellie is somewhat tormented by God or something. Because when she first meets Simon, she says, is this another trick? The last character I want to talk about, and quite possibly my favorite to speculate on, is the ignorant God. I love that his whole existence is in implications. I love that I have this grand around for context clues to put together what it is. I love that shit. I love when the cosmic and cosmic horror is cosmic, and then it being so, it's horrifying. The ignorant God, whose motivations we will never know and can only guess, is what Ellie believes to have caused the quiet rapture. It also, from that tiny glimpse we get of it, and from what Ellie says, puts Simon and his ship back together after it gets shredded to pieces. And how fascinating that a god that would, in its ignorance, tear a world to shreds, would put one man and his little sub back together. Isn't that food for thought? Isn't that just such a captivating idea? It doesn't even save him, doesn't even help him, right? It just helps him enough. Just puts him and his cage back into working order. It cares enough to do that, but not enough to fix his world or put him back on land. Isn't that just so chewable? I'm not the first to say that one of the most compelling things about Iron Lung is its lore. The movie adds a little bit more to the foundation already set in the game, so what the hell is actually happening in Iron Lung? Theory number 1, and one that's carried over from the game, is that the third impact happened. Not beat for beat the third impact, but the ignorant god looked into the universe, raptured all the habitable places, and then 90% of the people popped and turned into Fanta. Though this time it's not Fanta, but blood. That blood is what forms the blood oceans. My personal favorite theory of how they got put into a cosmic blender isn't quantum ray, though. It's that the universe immediately tried to course correct by placing all the people onto the closest approximatable planet it could find, but all that was left were a bunch of moons, so everyone got cosmically magnetized towards those moons and got liquefied. The cosmic fuckery was enough to make that impossible magnetization feasible, but not enough to let everyone keep their shape. Theory number 2 is something Simon himself presents in the movie. While he's talking to Eli, he asks what's more likely, that every planet and star in the universe disappeared, or if a few space stations disappeared. In this scenario, it's the space stations that were whisked away, but instead of the location they were whisked away to being a mystery, we know that they've been put in some other reality, the backstage of the universe, where they're struggling to survive and are at each other's throats. Theory number 3 is based off of Ellie's description of the ignorant god. Specifically, an ignorant god sees a sliver of our universe through a pinhole and thinks it understands all that is and all that will be. And it will, because a god makes sense of what it sees, despite what it should be. The light, it illuminates and blinds. It thinks and therefore we are. For this theory, I speculate that when the ignorant god looked into their universe, it saw a very minuscule portion of it and decided that was the reality of things. It was not, of course. God did not see the objects under the sun, only the shadows on the wall. But this is God, in all its immovable, blinding glory, and all-encompassing, spine-bending dominion. So when it decided the shadows on the wall were what reality was, then reality became the shadows on the wall. God saw there were no planets, no stars, no places that could hold habitable life, and 90% of humanity were joined together into this ocean of their base material. And it was so. No planets, no stars, oceans of human blood. Theory number 4 is a splinter of Theory 3 and focuses on the last sentence of Ellie's aforementioned description. It thinks, and therefore we are. For this theory, I speculate that the entirety of the Iron Lung universe takes place in the mind of the ignorant god. To clarify, I'm not saying that all of it isn't real and it's all a dream, etc., etc. It's very real, but the glass bowl where the blood oceans and the COI and Eden are sloshing around in are the ignorant god's skull, and recently God's been thinking of other things, so it thinks and therefore quite rapture. This is my favorite to consider out of all the theories, not because I think it's the most likely, but because I love stories like these. I eat it up every time. Honestly, this is probably the furthest thing from what's happening in canon. I just zoomed in on that single sentence and then built scaffolding without evidence. But isn't that the fun of theorizing? Iron Lung, I think, is less of a sci-fi horror film and more of a character drama. The pillars around it are sci-fi and horror, with the advanced space travel, the oceans of human blood, the mutated, many-mind eel, and the ignorant god, but at its heart, I feel that it's about people who are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and have to make their home in that little crevice they're trapped in. Their extreme circumstances have pushed them to make extreme decisions, and for the rest of their lives they have to figure out where they can put down the weight of those decisions without destroying the foundations of themselves. In their struggle to find those load-bearing places, they've put themselves on a journey they can't come back from. Our most prominent characters are examples of 3 paths that the residents of this wretched hellhole can take. Simon fell into a death cult, and despite not fully buying into Eden's doctrine, he still caused damage and killed people before he surrendered at Filament Station. For Eden, existence is suffering and death is salvation, so he put people out of their misery by butchering them. When we meet him for the first time, it's after he backs away from that belief system he grew up in, and now he has to sit with what he's done and find some place to set down every point of his life before the moment he turned himself in. He places it on the COI and later, on the act of saving the black box. He goes from annihilation and salvation to wagering on the hope of salvation. Ava worked for the Coalition of Iron. For them, not all hope is lost, but it must be guarded fiercely and strived toward by all means possible, even if those means dehumanize oneself and other people, even if those means cause loss of life. And they tell themselves that these deaths do not equate them with Eden's bloodshed, because at least they are working for humanity's salvation, without realizing humanity's salvation is also what Eden calls its efforts. Ava has already set the weight of her decisions down. She's marked space for it before the decisions have been made. She knows the people she sends to 85 don't deserve to be treated like testing animals. She recites that this decision is bigger than herself, so she does it and designates more mental space for every single person she sends to their death. In the end, she has to make space for her own demise. And she does so very easily, handing off a task to Simon knowing she will not be able to get either of them to the surface. Ellie is collateral damage, something that lives even worse than the death cult and the blindly hopeful coalition. She's been counted out, already set aside, already forgotten, already a statistic no one will ever attribute to being a person again. In her suffering, she has turned confused and mad and contradictory. In her madness and confusion, though, she is more honest than either Simon or Ava. See, hope and faith require a little bit of lying to yourself. If you're from Eden, you have to lie to yourself about how the death on your hands is justified. And if you're from the COI, you have to lie to yourself that there is a future for humanity, despite all the dwindling resources and the infighting. Nobody knows what's at the end of the road, so you have to keep your faith moving forward. You have to hitch your heart to something. Ellie doesn't have to do any of that. The mutation, the becoming of something unrecognizable, the loss of a future as a human being. That bad thing has already happened to her. It's still happening to her, by how our mind is constantly being pulled in different directions. There are no lies she can or has to tell herself anymore. No compartmentalizing of whatever destruction she causes. No finding a place to set down the guilt of killing someone. There's only the light. And she finds it terrible and wonderful. Both things are true. She leads Simon to see it. She kills him and Ava to keep the rest of humanity away from it. Both things are also true. At the end of the film, she seems to have fully decided that humanity must stay away from it after all. Iron Lung feels like a snapshot of a singular moment in a disaster. A 2-hour glimpse through a pinhole, where we see 3 paths intersect at once, and what happens when they do. It feels like watching a very bloody, very claustrophobic, and a very visceral riptide. It's definitely not a movie for everybody, but it's a movie that's perfect for someone like me. Even before I saw the film, I already knew it had all the ingredients I would like. Cosmic horror, religious themes,
big-ass mutated monsters, and messy human drama. This is my movie. It was made for me. And if you like slower movies with all those ingredients, maybe this movie's for you too. Come on. Let's hop into the blood ocean together. And in conclusion, I liked it. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. I know this isn't my usual upload, but I had thoughts and I wanted to talk about those thoughts. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled VSUN programming very soon, and I don't know if I'll be making another one of these analysis videos again, since this is supposed to be a music channel. Maybe when the movie comes out on streaming or DVD and I know this new stuff, I don't know. I'm not promising anything. I just like to yap about media, but I don't like to do it in public. If you have any thoughts on my thoughts, feel free to comment them below. I don't upload very often, so every video I put up is always an uphill battle with the YouTube algorithm. Please help interact so they don't throw me in the iron lung and stick me in a blood ocean. Social media links are in the description if you'd like to follow me, though as a heads up, I am not a very online person. I'm mostly active on Tumblr, but sometimes the website straight up eats people's asks, so I just need a notice, but not the message itself. I'd also like to thank my Ko-fi members for their support of the channel. YouTube's very finicky these days, and they keep me help the lights on. If you'd like to support me as well, Ko-fi link is in the description. I've been fighting to pay up my medical bills, but with a constantly fluctuating economy, it's been difficult. Thank you again for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I won't see you in the next one, since I don't know if I'll ever do another one of these again. But I'll see the VSynth fans though. See y'all guys next time. Bye bye.